What's going on, guys? So, a while ago, the influencer Andrew Tate converted to Islam. People have alleged this is for marketing reasons or to grow his audience, though Tate himself has said that he believes Islam is best aligned with his worldview and values. And I am of the opinion that we should take him at his word. Personally, I believe Tate has made comments which indicate he is a deist or someone who generally believes in God, just choosing between religions which he feels best suit his own values. I don't even think Tate wanted to leave Christianity, but rather felt forced out. So let's take a look at some of the reasons why Andrew Tate gives for why he personally left Christianity and converted to Islam.
What made you convert to Islam?
I think Islam is the last true religion on earth. I think a religion's job is to preserve the society which adheres to it. And I don't think Christian societies are being preserved by Christianity. I think that Christian societies have left in a massive power vacuum, and this power vacuum is being filled with, one, the beauty of Islam, and the other side, it's being filled with an insane worship for the government and leftist insanity and climate change and abortion and all these crazy things that people are worshiping. The LGBT flag gets more respect than Jesus Christ in most Christian countries now.
As a Christian, I gotta say, Tate is absolutely right here. We have an emasculated Christianity here in the West, which is totally unwilling to defend itself. Large corporations and the managerial state have turned against Christianity because they view it as an obstacle for them to consolidate control. Because the managerial state, or the matrix, can't distract people from the real economic losses and the losses of our basic dignities and freedoms without the pretend struggle of rainbow liberation. They have to redirect a bunch of people's focus into thinking that LGBT rights or whatever is some sort of legitimate front that they should be advocating for. In America, at least, evangelical Christianity is a hollow, shallow tool disconnected from history. It's an election tool for the Republican Party, which is not willing to defend itself. Evangelicals are perfectly willing to send a $300,000 cruise missile into a Bedouin's tent, but can't even defend themselves from their own institutions domestically, which are totally captured by radical leftists. Obviously, the Constitution was never intended to function in a way that allows perversity and degeneracy to run rampant in our country in the way that we see it running rampant today.
And I feel like with that massive power vacuum, a lot of the evils and Satan's agendas are simply being inserted into public space and public life. And you need God to resist evil. And Islam seems to be the only religion left on earth which is capable of saying no to the evil agendas. So to sit and say, well, I'm a Christian, that's great. And you believe in Christianity, that's great. You live in a Christian country, that's great. But your society isn't preventing the children from being convinced to castrate themselves. Well, then you need to have a long, hard look at your own religion. And that's not my religion to comment on. But when I feel a strong affinity for God, and I think anybody who does, you're instantly and constantly drawn towards Islam because it's real.
Something else which has weakened Christianity is the fact that male-only spaces are now gone from public life, so the masculine ethos cannot be properly cultivated. Also, the American workplace is dominated by these oppressive, bureaucratic structures which have their thumb on the scale to give women authority over men. You can get fired just for making the wrong comment or having the wrong opinion. HR is woke. So the religion of Christianity now justifies the behavior of people who are living under these conditions, and it is a servile, sheepish, and occupied people. Tate converted to Islam because, unfortunately, Christianity as a religion is failing. Christian men do not live lives in accordance with their own values in numbers that would make it reasonable to assert Christianity as the true religion. Something about Christianity has clearly come undone, unfortunately. And I don't take any pleasure in saying this because I am a believer that Jesus Christ is Messiah. But the fact remains that modern Christianity does not foster true patriarchy or offer anything to young men. It doesn't teach them the law or the significance of God's laws, how to properly relate to women, or how to be successful and make money. This is why Tate jumped ship.
I have some praying to do because I've converted to Muslim now, converted to Islam.
You're not actually Muslim.
When I'm in Dubai, I'm happy to be Muslim, and when I'm in Romania, I'm happy to be Christian.
When I'm in Dubai, I'm happy to be a Muslim, and when I'm Romania, I'm happy to be an Orthodox Christian. Those are not the words of someone who has suddenly become a Muslim ideologue, but rather the words of someone who believes in God, but Christianity, Christian civilization, has clearly failed to meet a certain standard. This is fundamentally why Andrew Tate is defecting. It is because Christianity in the West is very obviously not functioning as it should be. Who really cares if what you say is true or untrue if your society is collapsing around you at your feet?
I'm curious how so many fighters have become Muslims. Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay the first one, Mike Tyson, and there's a whole list actually. Why do you think fighters become Muslim?
Because it's a warrior's mindset, Islam. Islam understands the brutal realities of life, and the brutal realities of life as a man is constant and never-ending war. And I mean that for every man on earth. You're at war right now. If you're at home watching this, you're at war.
For the days of a man's life are like a war. That is from the Old Testament, Job 7:1. Still, Islam is seen as the more aggressive and masculine religion because part of its symbolism, because again, the sword is associated with Islam. You can see this in the flag of Saudi Arabia. But also, it is a religion that was begun by a warlord. And you can see this warrior ethos in the religion of Islam in the one way that they believe a Muslim dying guarantees their salvation in the afterlife, guarantees a man to go to heaven, which is to die in the process of defending the faith, to die in the process of jihad. And this is the sort of logic that suicide bombers have. They believe that their action of defense of the faith in blowing themselves up guarantees them a place in heaven because they are dying as a warrior. Vaguely reminiscent of Valhalla, although those two concepts share no historical connection.
Well, that's the term jihad, but it usually means a self-struggle.
No, it's perfect. Even better, self-struggle. You nailed it. That's what I was about to say with war. Getting to your job and back without losing your temper in the commute is war. Taking care of your family is war. Raising your children despite the government propaganda being injected into their ear is war. Maintaining a healthy body and mind is constantly war. Paying your bills is war. Life as a man is war.
I do believe the same concept has been articulated in the message of Jesus Christ, but Tate has clearly gravitated toward Islam because Islam is even more explicit in this endorsement, in this affirmation and understanding of man's life as war.
You're completely correct. You nailed it. When I said, do we force everyone to be Christian? You nailed it by changing to the exact thing I was going to say. It's about culture. It's a cultural issue. And it's completely and utterly correct. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why. I mean, I don't state this with arrogance. I don't want people to understand. I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm trying to make people understand the situation I'm in. I was the most Googled man on the planet at one point. So I had a massive impact on the culture, and it was dragging in the complete opposite direction that the culture wants to move in. Mm-hmm. I'm dragging men in the complete opposite direction that the Satanists and the people who want to turn us all into slaves want us to go in. So I think that anybody who sits at home and realizes that my legal troubles appearing basically directly after that is a coincidence, then you're awfully naive. So it's unfortunate also that the way the world works, at a certain level of influence and power, the justice system almost breaks down. We see that even in America and most other countries, it all just becomes a big game and a big show, and it's about power plays and a whole bunch of conversations behind the scenes. It's not about justice anymore. So it's very concerning because you are right. We are in a culture war.
Tate understands himself to be a soldier, a warrior in this culture war, bringing men away from the influence of the Matrix or the deep state or whatever you want to call it. And this is why he feels that the values of the religion of Islam dovetail so well with his own personal experience in life.
And it's culture which is absolutely not really defining the direction in which we move. And this is one of the reasons why I reverted to Islam because I feel like the Islamic culture is the strongest. You feel the culture.
I was
You
wondering
feel
because
it.
you were Christian, and I definitely do not know enough about the Islamic faith to sit here and debate you on it.
Yeah.
I'm never a person that will debate somebody on something that I'm not an expertise on.
Yeah.
But I will say that I'm sad that you're not a Christian anymore, because I can sense perhaps it's because you felt that Christians weren't doing a good job defending their beliefs.
Yeah, I think that God should be feared. I believe that God should be feared. I fear God.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the only things I fear. And I believe that also you see God to a degree, or you see religion, how you see yourself. And I see myself as a person of strong principles and strong morals. And I like to think of myself as the kind of person nobody really wants to cross, not because I'm a psycho, but because I'm a man of capability and I'm smart and I'm strong and nobody wants to make an enemy of me. So I feel like I find an affinity to a belief system which has very similar outlooks. And there's a whole bunch of other things I can say from the Quran and Islamic texts, etc. But to keep it very vague and very broad for people who are not Islamic, I felt God when I was in an Islamic country.
American Christians are unfortunately more interested in defending and propagating the rights and liberties of people who hate them than they are in continuing their own religion.
If I went to an Islamic country,
That's the problem.
I
The
felt
West-
God.
West is
You don't
Christian.
feel any God.
I think
How
that's
is it a
it.
Christian country if Satanists are mocking Jesus on the streets?
I understand what you're saying, and I was trying to gather in my head what pulled him away from Christianity, and I said it's probably the example. If you're thinking that America is a Christian country, and you're thinking that the United Kingdom is a Christian country,
They're not. They're
and you're
not.
going, Christianity is getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And the truth is that America is no longer a Christian country. We're being run by people that are satanic. Hollywood is satanic, and
Right.
Hollywood is running America.
Correct.
So you're not wrong. But I think that right now America is facing a spiritual battle. And for the first time in a very long time, Christians are starting to stand up and speak about our principles.
I hope so. And
we
I
could have used you as a
I know.
Christian.
But I have seen in California, I've seen Christians and Muslims get side by side when they were complaining about the LGBT
I did
teachings
see
in
that
schools, which is
recently.
fantastic. And I know what you're saying, and that is true. But it's almost like when I go to an Islamic country, I feel God around.
And again, this is why I say that Tate feels that he was basically forced to leave Christianity, because all of the Muslim/Christian Brotherhood posts you may be seeing on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now are probably from accounts that support him. He's not someone who fundamentally hates or is opposed to Christianity, but simply feels as though it didn't offer him enough.
You see it. You see it in the way the people are dressed. You see it in the fact that everyone's in a family. You see it in the fact that there's a mosque on every corner. It's in the air. And it's almost like when I'm in Dubai and I'm talking to my friends, my Islamic friends, and I explain to them the things you have to protect your child from in an American school. They literally think I'm lying. They're like, no, surely. Like, it's
What about
mind-bending
Africa?
to them.
What about African countries that are Christian?
Okay, so yeah, this is interesting. So
Yeah, they still are mind blown by the concept of what we're fighting in America. So America is unique. We shouldn't say that this is the
You're right.
blanket.
You're right. They're right. There are Christian countries which still take Christianity.
And they're like, what
very
do you
seriously.
mean men can be women? Like, they think you're crazy.
And we're in Romania, and Romania is a country which is very
Christian.
conservative and very
Very
Christian.
Christian.
And they don't buy into any of this garbage
No,
either.
none of it.
So this is absolutely not true. It's unfair to say all Christian countries are like that.
America is an exception, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I feel like the whole West is, unfortunately.
The West is. I've said on my show the entire time. The West is falling. The fact that we're even having these debates is not good.
But sadly, Western Christians and Western people generally are not being honest with themselves in what they need to do to make men strong enough to maintain this civilization, to rebuild patriarchy. Everyone is more concerned with the legal fiction of so-called civil rights and the culture war. The West has been totally given over to this rot of degeneracy, and Christians have proven themselves unwilling to stand up.
And when you're truly a warrior in your heart and in your soul and in your actions, and you understand how important God is, you're going to end up believing in Islam. You're going to end up being a Muslim.
When it comes to religious tolerance, are you tolerant of other religions?
If you tolerate everything, then you stand for nothing.
I agree that tolerance is a strange word, but it's used widely to imply...
It's a hijack.
Tolerance.
Tolerance is a hijacked word. So tolerance in and of itself, just like we talked earlier about gender equality, is a hijacked word that the Matrix has hijacked and taken a nice pretty word and they've hijacked it. Because when they say you must be tolerant, what they're saying is move out your house, give it up to asylum seekers, allow your son to chop his balls off. That's what they're telling you to do. So tolerant is hijacked. However...
You see that here? Chop your son's balls off and give up your house to asylum seekers. Tate has made some inflammatory comments about Islam taking over the West, and it would be better that the UK submitted to Islam. But this is not actually the words of a Muslim ideologue. Tate says these things to challenge Western men, the people of the West, to galvanize them to action, to antagonize them so they feel inspired to do something and stand up. And this mentality of Tate was exemplified in a tweet he made back in April, and this went over the heads of a lot of losers and idiots who don't understand where he's coming from. But if you read carefully, you can see that he's not some sort of globalist. He doesn't believe that the UK or the US or the rest of Europe would be better off if Arabs were the majority population in these areas. He is issuing a challenge to men to do better. He's issuing a challenge to Western men to do better, to improve, to build, to finally stand up to the corrupt governments which run our countries. See, he says, soon your race will be nothing more than a few pages in a history book, a lesson on what happens when you F the female psyche so hard they're obsessed with money and social media as opposed to being one of many baby factories for a king. 30 children minimum for the Dons. White people, go talk to your quote-unquote best friend wife about what to do this weekend. Maybe you can take a nice walk around IKEA. Enjoy extinction. Obvious, bombastic rhetoric for anyone who knows anything about Tate. But there were still plenty of losers who took this tweet personally. First step in becoming less weak. Don't lick the boots of people who publicly mock your ethnicity, religion, and value system. We can start with Tate himself. And someone's like, dude, you totally missed the point of Tate's tweet. And Dave Green, Dave the Distributist, is like, believe it or not, I can tell when someone is insulting me without getting broken up, mainly because I'm not autistic. He literally still didn't get it. This is about challenging people to do better. And this is another reason why Tate left for Islam, is because you have these supposed uber right-wing conservatives like Dave Green here, who are really just like, who don't inspire anyone, who are just duds. And that's really why they don't like Tate, because they view him as competition.
My brother's a Christian. I live with a Christian. It's not my job to be an Islamic scholar. I don't know enough. I'm a revert. It's not my job to go through and tell other people about their own religion. It's not my job to insult other religions. I can only say why I stopped being a Christian, because I lost faith in the religion as a whole. That's my personal preference. That's all I can do. I'm tolerant of other religions. In fact, I think we need more God in the world, not less. I'm tolerant of religions. If I meet an atheist, perhaps I might look at him strange. Perhaps
you were for a while.
Well, yes, exactly. But perhaps I wouldn't do business with atheists anymore. Perhaps if someone sat and said, I'm an atheist, I would lose respect for them. I'll admit that openly on camera. But if someone were to sit and say, I'm a Christian, I'd say, okay, that's fine. Beautiful. You believe in God, I believe in God. The world needs more God. And I think that's very important. But this tolerant word we have to be careful with. We have to be very careful with this word.
I agree. It's accepting, I think, is a better word than tolerance, because tolerance implies putting up with something.
But the reason it's so important to be careful with this word is because one of the core tenets of being a man is intolerance. If you're a man, you're intolerant. You have principles, and principles can't be broken, which makes you intolerant. You have duty, which means you can't have your actions changed or psyoped out of you, which makes you intolerant. You have land you're supposed to protect. You have your people you're supposed to protect, your family. You don't want strangers turning up in your house. You're intolerant of random guests at 3 a.m. If you're half good as a man, you're intolerant of a lot of things. So I would never sit here and call myself a tolerant man, because that makes me a walkover, and I'm certainly not a walkover. I am tolerant, sure, but not in this hijacked sense of the word where I'm going to allow myself and my people and those I care about to be decimated by the insane agents of Satan.
Tate converted to Islam because Christians are unwilling and really probably unable at this point to hold anyone accountable for their actions. Christianity today is totally complacent and basically rejects the virtue of patriarchy. So there's now an overemphasis on this sickly sweet love and tolerance and forgiveness. And you can see this conflict played out between tradcons and the red pill / manosphere, especially in conversations that the internet figure known as Pearl has with figures like Michael Knowles or Trent Horn. The red pill represents disaffected men in our current system, and the tradcon movement, as represented by people like Michael Knowles, signifies a toothless old guard conservatism which is not muscular enough to stand up to leftism.
Andrew, interesting you say you're a revert, not a convert.
Yes.
Why?
Well, we all start as Muslims, is my understanding of it. Like I said, I'm not an Islamic scholar, but I think what I found most amazing about my reversion, to be honest with you, is how similar it was to Christianity. It's really not as far away as people believe it is. And I feel like, especially in the Western world, especially in America, because I'm American, the white Christians see it as this far away religion from a far away place, and it's very, very different. Not understanding that Christianity and Islam were born from the same period of, same place on earth, right? And we respect and worship a lot of the same people. And it's a beautiful thing. So we all start as Muslims, is my understanding. And like I said, I'm very careful how I talked about these subjects because there's people more intelligent than me. But it's closer to Christianity than I thought, which is also quite refreshing.
I don't think I'm smarter than Andrew Tate, but I am a nerd who studies religion, so I have a couple things to say. For me, the Quran is an Arab cultural product, and Islam is a retooled, modified version of Christianity, retrofitted with certain doctrines and dogmas to suit the needs of a Dark Age Bedouin warlord. In my opinion, it can be interpreted as a universalization of Arab cultural norms, especially its legal system, which is the Sharia law legal framework. As some examples, it's almost really like an overcorrection. You can see that Islam took the practice of veiling, present in the Near East and the Middle East at the time, which originated with Byzantine Christian women who would wear veils to show their purity and modesty, and Islam made it a divine commandment with the burqa or the niqab. The Quran, which is the central text of Islam, is only half as long as the Christian New Testament and is only ever supposed to be in Arabic. Some Muslims even memorize the entire Quran, even if they don't speak Arabic themselves. Even though most Muslims aren't actually Arab, you can still see how it's a very Arab-centric religion, and about 1/3 of the Quran is unintelligible without a companionate document called the Hadith, of which there are several copies and there is no clear consensus among Muslims as to which one is authoritative. What a lot of people in the West don't realize is that people in Arabia were actually Christian at the time. And Islam is this sort of hijacked, modified version of Christianity. However, evangelical Christians often make Islam into a caricature, portraying it as a devil religion with no redeeming qualities whatsoever, but it is important to see Islam in its proper context and understand what it gets wrong and what it gets right. Islam should be regarded as a trial, test, or judgment against the people of God. God judges Christian countries with Islamic conquest when they become soft and are racked by internal conflict and basically apostatize. Here are some notable examples: the Byzantine Empire, the Umayyad conquest of Spain, North Africa, where Christian communities were fragmented, and the Ottoman conquests in the Balkans, and also now, I guess, every major city in modern Europe. Islam burst out of the empty quarter of Arabia as this unstoppable, inexorable force, and Christian civilization was even compelled to invent chivalry, to adopt these military values as a reaction to the encroachment of Muslims up through Spain and the civilizational pressures caused by the Islamic world generally. The Chanson de Geste, known as the Lay of Roland, an 11th century epic poem about a Christian knight fighting valiantly against Islamic forces, is a great example of this. It's a romanticized retelling of the wider civilizational conflict which was going on at the time. Chivalry, the concept of being a knight, masculinized Western Christianity, expressing a system of values of the newly forged strong men that comprised the warrior aristocracy of medieval Europe. Values such as loyalty, bravery, generosity, and self-sacrifice were renewed in Christianity. The Knight Roland's heroic death on the battlefield, his willingness to suffer and take on great personal risk with fatal consequences, was analogized to the death and sacrifice of Christ on the cross. Through chivalry, Christendom was reminded of what it meant to be a soldier of Christ. Tate's conversion to Islam reveals to us that people turn to Islam when Christianity is not functioning as it should be, a condition known as apostasy. Tell me, why would God allow Drag Queen Story Hour to occur in this country and have transgender ideology supported by the state? Why would that happen? Because the church is not providing men with what they need to be strong, successful patriarchs who uphold civilization. And although I am not and never will be a Muslim, I can totally understand why Tate defected to Islam. And people on the right should not expect any positive developments within Christianity as a whole until Christians themselves rediscover patriarchy in their own religion. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you really liked it, please share it. And Red Channels will catch you in the next one.